Hey folks, Papa Boris here, and I'm reviewing the first game to finish for me in the Season 23 Intermezzo Championship. We're up against Axel Klar, rated in the 1700s, and Stefan Greatfirst, rated in the 1400s, and me also in the low 1700s. Axel starts off the game grabbing Alexandra, and I gotta say, I was surprised to see this. This must be a playstyle thing, because I would pick Pyramids, Confucius, or Hippocrates, any of them over Alexandra. Yes, Alexandra, you get an extra yellow token, but I think having the extra action from the Pyramids, the extra science from Confucius, or multiple yellow tokens from Hippocrates, plus not having to lose an action to replace the leader, are all better than Alexander, and especially here Confucius and Pyramids I think are top two things. But again, I'm not saying this is a mistake, just an interesting playstyle thing. Axel, I guess, really likes the yellow token, so grabs that, and that means that Stefan has Confucius and Pyramids available. I was curious if my 1400 opponent would know to take those, and he did, so perfectly fine start for him. Me, I take Hippocrates and Urban Growth. Just a quick note for you newer players. If Urban Growth and Stockpile had been switched, I still would have taken Urban Growth, leaving an action unused. Don't fall for the psychological trap of feeling like you have to use all your actions in the starting draft. A yellow card's a yellow card. So if you're only getting one yellow card, it doesn't matter if you have an extra civil action left over or not. Take the free rock here instead of the thing that costs an action to play down. Now, Axel Klar's first turn was also very interesting to me. In Axel Klar's shoes here, what I would do is play my leader, make a mine, and then grab the Roman roads to have an Age A wonder to work on. But Axel Klar decides to instead take Engineering Genius and then build a mine. Maybe she's hoping for Roman roads to wheel. That's possible. Although, if you look at Stefan Greatfirst's turn, you can see that that's actually not super likely to happen. But regardless, I would have preferred just having the guarantee of the wonder rather than having this card that I might end up having to use on a wonder I'm less excited about. But anyway, that's a playstyle thing. Totally fine to do that as well if you want to. And we go to Stefan. So Stefan has a very normal first turn, plays Confucius, grabs the free food, making sure the Roman roads will slide off on Axel's turn if I don't take them, builds a mine, raises population. Normal stuff. Absolutely nothing wrong with this player. At least in these first couple of turns. And on my turn, I decide to go off the rails. So the right thing here, I'm pretty sure, is just to build a mine, raise population, play Hippocrates, and just take the Roman roads. Don't dick around. If you want, you can use Urban Growth to build a lab instead of mine, to choose this card essentially to get a free science instead of getting a free rock. But I think with Roman roads, a wonder that really benefits from being rushed, you want to get the extra rock from the Urban Growth so that you can just get this wonder online faster. But the top card of the Age 1 deck is Silk Road, and I decide I'm feeling frisky, let's do it. And I think this is a mistake. Yes, it's cool to get a science and some culture, and yes, at 7 rocks, it's only 2 more rocks than the Roman roads is, but it is an extra action to build, and in my case, an extra action to take, so it's 2 extra actions to get this thing online. I was just really, seduced by the promise of having this Urban Growth count for an extra rock, but I don't think it's worth it. The extra actions in the early game are just too precious. If maybe this was Hammurabi for an extra action to offset the extra action cost of the Silk Road, maybe this would be worthwhile, though I think even then it's a really close call, because Roman Road is just a really great wonder, so I think I biffed it there. First play of my first turn, and I'm already goofing it up. Well, from here I build a mine and put down Hippocrates, and we go over to Axel Klar. So the Roman roads is slid off. Axel Klar doesn't get to build it, but she decides to take the Colosseum. I will mention, by the way, I don't know if Axel is a male or a female name, but in the app, Axel is a she. Now, so am I, because I just picked the female avatar. I didn't know that it would mean that from that point on, every time I played, people would see a she when playing against me. So I'm going to call Axel she just because of that, but if anyone happens to know Axel and knows that it is a man, let me know, and I'll make sure to fix that for the future videos. Anyways, Axel decides to grab the Colosseum. Not my favorite wonder, but you get the extra military action, an extra worker-ish, and then some science discounts and bonus culture, so it's, better than nothing and probably still better than Hanging Gardens. And then she decides to rush it. Now, you know what I'm going to say about that. Instead of spending 2 actions to build 2 stages and 3 rocks, just make a worker and build your lab. In fact, because the first stage of the Colosseum costs 2 rocks exactly, you could, for 3 actions, make a worker, build a lab, and build the first stage of the Colosseum. This wonder does not benefit from being rushed. All you get is an extra Age 1 card draw, you're really unlikely to use that extra worker immediately. So it's just throwing away a science as far as I'm concerned. And then for the last action, Axel does make a worker. So really, she could have just built a lab instead of building the second stage. And as far as I'm concerned, just threw away an extra science. So I was a little bit surprised to see a 1700 player make this move that I consider a mistake, but maybe there is something I am missing about the value of rushing the Colosseum. All right, Stefan plays an event. We get 2 free food, and Stefan's in a little bit of a pickle here. So what he does is he raises population, paying off his frugality, gets started on the pyramids, which is fine. Unlike the Colosseum, the pyramids does make sense to be rushed, because the sooner you get the extra action online, the better, and that may be worth giving up some science. But now with these last 2 actions, there's really nothing great for Stefan to take. Now, my preference here would probably be to raise my population and grab one of these leaders. I'm guessing this one card isn't a colony, or Stefan would have taken Columbus. But as it is, maybe I would just take Leonardo and hope that alchemy came up quickly. It doesn't feel great to risk like that. You can also take drama here. Bach likes dramas. Gaudi likes dramas. Marlene likes dramas. There's a lot of drama-loving leaders, so you could take that and raise your population and avoid committing to these leaders who may not be good if you don't get the right cards. But Stefan decides to not raise population and instead take Leo and drama, which I think is okay. It's not my personal preference. I would have rather gotten an action out of my action debt and raised my population here. But, you know, it is fine. Leonardo will be good if alchemy comes up soon. So it's a bit of a gamble, but it's one that can pay off really nicely if you get lucky. All right, so on my turn here, I also have a little bit of a struggle to spend my actions. I build a first stage of the Silk Road, I raise my population, and then I use this urban growth boosted by a rock to make my first lab. Spicy, right? Now, what do I do with my last action? Well, I could take rich land here, because eventually I'll be doing irrigation or iron, probably. And it is better by a rock, thanks to Silk Road. Or I could raise my population. This does cost a food in the long term, because I get the consumption up sooner. I think my personal preference now would be to grab the rich land, but I take Genghis. I don't know, it's hard to say. Somewhat spoiling the outcome of the game, the culture from Genghis definitely isn't irrelevant, but there will end up being a better choice for me. My thinking at the time was, well, Columbus is falling off the row. I don't want to commit to him because I have no colonies. I might not draw any. So who are the remaining leaders? Well, Saladin would be great, and Eleanor would be good, but Barbarossa and Gutenberg are a little bit dubious. So let's just take this leader, even though I don't have really support for him at the moment and might never draw it, just to have, you know, some culture. Well, Axel is up. Axel decides to play an event. We get the development of civil life. This is actually really good for her because it allows her to build a lab, and then the final stage of the wonder costs 3 rocks with engineering genius A, and the rock save building the lab with civil life. She can actually finish the wonder this turn. And who cares? Oh, you have an extra military action, an extra happy face that doesn't matter. I mean, it's just not a wonder that, in my opinion, really matters to get built sooner. She raises population, grabs irrigation and breakthrough. You can also pass on irrigation if you want, but she's going for, you know, the economic option that's available to her and taking a very, very strong card. 2 science is a huge deal. So perfectly normal ending to the turn. And just to be clear, it's correct to build the wonder there, just to finish it, but she could have an extra science right now, and instead she doesn't. So Stefan plays an event. We get a free temple, and I get a little bit lucky here. I actually didn't raise my population, but I can use development of civil life to raise it and then get the temple as well. Stefan gets the free temple, finishes the pyramids, has 3 actions now to spend. What do you do with these actions? You don't really want to play Leo because Confucius is still putting out science. And 3 actions is kind of a lot to use. So what would you do here? I think for me, I'd like to take the frugality so that I can maybe sneak an extra worker out of the yellow bank before the age turns over. And I don't know, depending on my mood, maybe knights and cultural heritage for the science. I do have pyramids for an extra action, so the cultural heritage can be, you know, offset like the action cost of it. The knights, of course, is an important technology to have if you don't have swordsmen, so you can actually get some tactics going. So it fills up your hand. It's a little bit risky, but that's probably what I would do. Maybe you could take like frugality or cultural heritage and urban growth instead of the knights in order to be able to like get that alchemy going sooner, because Stefan still needs a second lab. But Stefan takes a different approach. He decides to get the Himeji Castle and knights. I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't like long-term wonder projects on 3 rocks, but it kind of ends up working okay for him. So, and that's happened before in my other commentary where I keep making that comment like, well, I don't like taking long-term wonder projects, and then it kind of works out okay for my opponent. So I could just be wrong about that. In any case, that's his turn, and it goes over to me. So I raise my population a couple of times, get those actions out of my action debt. I also put Genghis on. This is just 3 culture. I could have waited one more turn to get an extra worker in H4 with Hammurabi. Not Hammurabi, Hippocrates. But the 3 culture, it's not irrelevant. So I guess I'm glad I did this. And now with my last 2 actions, I just get to work on the Silk Road. I need to build this thing. And there are these great action cards. Patriotism in particular works great with Silk Road because you get an extra military action as well. And the urban growth could be helpful for upgrading alchemies later without having to pay any rocks. But I just decided, you know what, it's not anything that's relevant now. So let me just spend my actions getting this thing built. And next turn I'm guaranteed to be able to finish it and start generating the extra science and culture. I do get a tactic, which is quite lucky. My first turn with Genghis, I get a tactic. It's not like the top tactic, but still, it's something I can use to get extra strength and also keep my culture bonus alive. That was a big swing of luck for me. Now, I would have loved to take Saladin for the extra action instead of Genghis Khan. But Axel gets to take Saladin instead, which is an amazing turn for her. And with her last couple actions, she just decides to grab the swordsman and raise population. She then needs to build a warrior in order to get out of corruption. So she's holding off on this irrigation thing. But I think taking the swordsman makes sense. She is getting the discount from the Colosseum, and this could be a way to boost her strength. She gets the extra action with Saladin, of course. And it's over to Stefan, who gets Code of Laws right here, which is amazing for him. We get free resources. Stefan elects the 2 rocks, puts down a fighting band, makes a warrior, so he's at a respectable strength. He then grabs the Code of Laws and researches it. His science is low, but he is getting an extra science with Confucius every turn, plus he's going to get more science, maybe for free with Leonardo eventually, so I think it's okay for him to go a whole hog on the extra actions with the pyramids and the Code of Laws. He grabs a rich land and urban growth, very good at taking yellow cards, raises population, builds a lab. So a really efficient turn. Everything that was done was useful. He's crushing it on the actions, 6 to 5 to 4 for his opponents, and his strength is fine. Now the only thing he's missing here is economy, so he needs alchemy to show up. Both alchemies are lower in the deck, so he needs alchemy to show up and get Leonardo going, and he needs either irrigation or iron to get some economy going, and then he'll be in really great shape. Of course, it's worth noting, there's only 1 irrigation out so far, and both irons are in the bottom of the deck, so no one's really had a chance to get that much economy going. Alright, on my turn I play an event. It's free stuff. I am, of course, going to finish the Silk Road. I build a warrior to get my medieval army going as well, so that any strength-based events here I can win. So now I'm getting an extra science and 2 extra culture, and what to do with my last actions. Well, Code of Laws is sitting right there, so I decide to go for it. It does use up all my science, and it does mean I can't get this breakthrough very sadly. But with the Silk Road science bonus, I'm hoping that I can get away with this, even though currently I don't have any other economy set up. Both alchemies did show up. If one of my opponents doesn't take it, then I may be able to get one. It's possible, of course, that Axel takes it, and that Stefan's definitely going to take one. There's no way that Stefan doesn't take it. So if Axel decides to spend 2 actions taking alchemy, then it's going to be hard for me to raise my science further. So it's a little bit of a risky line, but I think getting the action is worth it. Then I grabbed frugality. A little bit of a frisky play. I could have just raised my population here, but I decided to try to go for it even though age 1 is ending and see if I can maybe sneak an extra yellow token out of the deck. Well, actually, hold on. I will be able to, because 3 plus 3, remember the frugality is boosted by the Silk Road, I will definitely get an extra worker out of the bank, assuming I have the 2 actions to play frugality and then raise population next turn. Alright, so Axel plays an event, or sorry, doesn't play an event, gets free rocks from Stefan's event and raises her population. She now has a lot of time. I was wondering if she was going to take Monarchy here for all of her science. She does have Breakthrough to offset that a little bit and could take another one as well. But this 5th action's illusory. It's Saladin, so you are kind of committing to the crappy government when you do that, and then you're forced to later on, if you want good science, or good actions, play like Justice System, because both Code of Laws have been taken. Now, maybe it's still correct to do that, because the good action now is better than the best action later, but Axel does not decide to do this. Instead, she researches the swordsman with her science, builds one, builds another one, researches irrigation, that's where the breakthrough is used, grabs another breakthrough for more science, and starts her farms going. So a very efficient turn. Everything here has value, and now she's first in line for any strength-based events. Luckily, she does not have a Legion for even more strength. All right, Stefan's got a lack of yellow cards to get here, but the one that's available, Engineering Genius, is really good for him because it's going to help him get this expensive wonder up. And I think he finds a pretty nice way to use his resources this turn. So he takes Alchemy, he puts down Leonardo, maybe a turn earlier than he could have. But I think actually, no, this is going to be Confucius's last turn in play. So this is the correct time in order to play Leonardo. 10 cards may look like a lot, but they are going to go fast. Then we research Alchemy, of course, and use Urban Growth to get this Alchemy going for Leo's Science bonus. So Science has been fixed. So what to do now? Well, take the Engineering Genius and build the first stage of the castle to get out of Corruption. The Engineering Genius plus the rocks from general production will be enough to finish this wonder next turn, get a strength boost, get a culture boost. And with the last action, Stefan finds a really clever move that honestly I probably would have missed. I think in his shoes, I would have done something like take Monarchy, which is not necessarily wrong. He doesn't have the science to research it right away, and he is in a little bit of science debt. But with Pyramids and Code of Laws, Monarchy is a perfectly fine wonder to go to the end of the game with. You can eventually maybe take Warfare or Strategy to beef up your military actions, and then with 7 civil actions, you're pretty good to go on that front. But he uses his last action with rich land to build a free third farm. And that's actually quite smart because these 2 workers are going to disappear. With 2 food instead of 1 gained this turn, he'll actually be able to get another worker from the next bank. Now, whether that's worth it over Monarchy, you can debate that, but I think it's a really clever move, and I really appreciate it. You know, this person's about 250 points rated lower than his opponents, and I think is playing very, very nicely here. So on my turn, Alchemy does slide down to the front row because Axel didn't spend 2 actions taking one. So I play the Frugality, I grab Alchemy, research it, upgrade a lab, start fixing my science, and then with my last action, of course, it's very natural to get out of Corruption by raising population thanks to that Frugality I took. So good planning on my part here. I don't mind passing on all this stuff. And the Knights, you know, one of the benefits of being Genghis is you can have fake Knights until age 2 and use cavalrymen instead of knights, which cost only 1 more science. And yes, they cost some more rocks, but then that you are ready to go for any age 3 tactics potentially. All right, so Axel's up, takes iron, which has shown up finally, researches it, starts getting to work on her mines, and then takes a really principled turn here. She just takes this rich land in order to make it possible to upgrade both of her iron mines next time and completely finish working on her rocks. She also spends a military action to upgrade a warrior to a swordsman and copies over Stefan's fighting band, so she's using up all of her actions and missing age 1 draws instead of missing age 2 draws, which would have happened a turn later. Note that because Axel took 2 cards, the age ends exactly, so Stefan was smart to get rid of Confucius and also to build that extra farm, because now Stefan is not stuck with 3 unusable food. Instead, Stefan has 4 food, which can be used to get this worker out. Now, obviously, Stefan's also going to use the Engineering Genius to finish the castle and raise that population. With 4 actions left, a little bit slim pickings here. There's only 1 yellow card, and it's not an amazing one to take for 2 actions. Here, what I would consider is Masonry, because while it couldn't be used to finish this wonder, it may be helpful for building wonders in the future. It's also good since Stefan's not getting rocks for a while. The other iron just showed up. Stefan could actually take it, but it feels bad when age 2 has already started to take iron for 3 actions. Maybe still the correct play or a reasonable play, but Stefan doesn't want to go for that. So if you're not getting your rocks upgraded for a while, getting this masonry so that your other lab is cheaper and so anything else you do on the urban building front is cheaper could be a good long-term game plan. But Stefan does not decide to go in that direction. Instead, Stefan grabs and researches the warfare to get an extra strength and an extra military action. Note that with Warfare, having Monarchy would have been pretty good, although that would have meant not building this farm and also having to pass an entire turn to either revolt to it or wait 2 turns in order to get the science to do it naturally, which holds up any other things you might want to be researching at the time. So not necessarily a mistake not to take Monarchy. He also does just grab the reserves because there's nothing better to do, doesn't value the Masonry, and passes the turn. On my turn, I'm now last, so I do need to catch up on strength. It's very lucky that Swordsman is right here. I research it, I build a full Swordsman, and then with my other military action, I use this Phalanx that I was lucky enough to draw. So I drew 2 lucky tactics here. So now I am, unfortunately, unable to upgrade another sword to get in the lead. above Axel. Axel will break ties on her turn. But at least on Stefan's turn and my turn, I am the strongest. And I felt like that was worth spending the action, even though it meant giving up an H2 military card draw in order to get that short-term benefit. Now, what the hell am I going to do with my 3 actions? Well, I grabbed the Constitutional Monarchy that showed up right at the top of the H2 deck. I am willing, in 2 turns, when I have 6 science, to just revolt to this, fix my military actions and my civil actions, and just not worry about that. Well, as far as civil actions go, with Code of Laws, I don't need to worry about that for the rest of the game. And as far as military actions go, yeah, I might need to get strategy or military theory at some point to fix them, but with 4, you can do just fine for a while. All right, so Axel's up. I hold my breath, but she doesn't play an event, so I don't miss out on any strength-based event. She uses the rich land, raises population, grabs scientific method to fix her science next turn, upgrades a mine, a really principled turn. Everything is effective, everything makes sense. Next turn, she can research scientific method, upgrade, and then she's got a great economy. Farms and mines from age 1, and science right at the beginning of age 2. The only thing that Axel is missing at this point is culture. She's falling behind a couple of points from Stefan, and I'm making 5 per turn, so 4 points per turn for me. But she is the only person who got her rocks at all upgraded, and they're fully upgraded. She's ready to go with food. Stefan has this like fake food situation. I have no food. Axel is just 1 upgraded away from completely finishing the food, and she even is making a food this turn so she can get another worker out, and she's about to get scientific method going. So her economy is fine. She is pretty ahead of the other players in that respect, and so she's got a really good chance of being able to convert to culture generation and start working on that element of the game too. All right, Stefan's up, grabs reserves. Stefan loves taking yellow cards, and for good reason. He has 6 actions. It's what you got to do. Also, grabs selective breeding to fix the food later on more realistically and permanently. Researches drama and upgrade and builds a theater. This is ambitious. I would have personally preferred to just upgrade this lab so that I could get my science up to 5. But Stefan decides to start pumping out some culture and plays a reserves just to get it out of his hand and get 2 rocks. So a little bit of an ambitious or adventurous turn, but I don't necessarily think it's a mistake. It's, I think, a playstyle thing, just preferring to get some extra culture and then trying to, fix the economy stuff more fully later. When you have 6 actions, you have some wiggle room, so I think it's maybe not unreasonable to do this kind of thing. All right, so it's my turn. I'm still in the lead. I decided to play a colony even though I don't want to. It's actually kind of funny that I play that colony, as we're going to see at the end of the game. Immigration flips up, which gives both my opponents a free population increase, which is obviously terrible for me, but what can you do? I grab coal. I upgrade my other lab, and with my last 2 actions, I just say, screw it, let's take selective breeding. I also spend 1 of my rocks to get this warrior upgraded, so I'm beating Axel Clar fully if she flips up another strength-based event. It's a bit of an ambitious undertaking to get this coal and the selective breeding and the constitutional monarchy. It's going to take me a while to do all that, because next turn I'm revolting, and then I'm only at 3 rocks. It's going to be difficult to upgrade all this stuff. But I decide that I am in a culture lead, so I can fix my actions and then slowly build up my economy to age 2. And then from that point on, shift to culture from there. So I'm letting my opponents, letting as if I have a say in the matter. I figured I might be okay to let my opponents catch up on culture and then shoot ahead of them after that. Don't know if that's correct or not. I'm only a 1700 rated player, so, you make your own judgments. But that was the plan. Axel's up, plays an event, and it is cultural influence, so not a strength-based event. Stefan makes out. Genghis's 3 culture does not count for that. Now, Axel makes a very principled turn, researches scientific method, spends most of her rocks to upgrade, so her science is now fixed. And what to do with 3 actions? I mean, there are some tempting options here, but she picks what I think I would have picked as well, which is to grab Constitutional Monarchy and basically do the same thing that I'm doing, which is to plan for a revolt, or maybe if this other lab gets upgraded, to actually pay the 12 science outright. With her last action, she grabs Opera. I would have personally taken Frugality, but this is something I've noticed in my games, is I find myself in a situation often in the end game where I would give anything to be able to convert my rocks into points. And it's probably because of moments like this where I don't take the Opera while I have the chance. So I don't think that's a mistake. But I always feel uncomfortable and I prefer to get the resources over culture, especially if it's going to be a while before I can actually use that culture. Now, what I was happy to see is that Axel did not improve his strength, so I'm still in the top, strength-wise. Stefan does not play an event, though. Grabs cannon. Now, I'm going to speculate here. I believe one of these 4 age 2 cards is the fortifications tactic. There's only a single copy in the game. It's this one, and it gives you 5 strength for having 2 cannons. According to some discussions in the Discord, I have the impression that top players of this game consider this to be a broken or borderline broken tactics. Some really, really highly rated players have complained about this, and I saw some long discussions about it a while ago. So I think that if you have it, it is not unreasonable to swipe these cannons for 3. You don't know if your opponents are just going to do it. Obviously, they're less likely to if you have that tactics card because there's only 1 copy of it. So if they don't have it, then it's less likely that they're going to really care about these cannons. But there is a copy of this card, the Defensive Army, that's floating around potentially somewhere. And both your opponents have 2 infantry. So they're both going to value that one. So if one of your opponents has it, they might take the cannons, and you might really regret that you don't get a chance to use the the fortifications when you had the chance. So it may seem a little odd, but I think this is a perfectly reasonable play. And hey, that's what having 6 actions is for, is you can do things like this. Now, with the rest of Stefan's turn, he researches selective breeding and gets his food fixed. With his last action, he could upgrade the lab, and he does. Sorry, I forgot what he did. That's exactly what I would do as well. So good job, sir. Now, it is noteworthy that he doesn't take the rifleman here, which would be great, obviously, for adding 4 extra strength off of these warriors. But again, I think that's because he has the fortifications and doesn't need the rifleman. You can use fortifications as an endgame tactics card. Just build up a bunch of cannons and airplanes, and that will often, unless you're up against some really crazy military player, be good enough to serve you the entire game. So he doesn't need these knights he has, and he does not need the rifleman because he has these cannons. Again, that is my speculation. He throws away a bunch of H2 cards, actually, but I believe the one that he kept is the fortifications. We'll never know, of course, for sure, but that's what I think. So I take a principled turn here. I revolt into Constitutional Monarchy. It's actually quite convenient. I can now use my military action and 1 rock to upgrade a warrior to a sword and have 3 actions now. I'm not missing any draws. I could actually play the Conquistadors here, but I decide not to. I'm still in the lead without them, and I don't want to miss out on any more draws. One thing I've learned from reading discussions of top players is that the H2 draws are really, really important, and that's something I do a lot, is I just kind of casually pass on them, but you really shouldn't without a good reason. I just didn't think I had a good enough reason to play this tactic right here in that moment. All right, so Axel Klar's up, plays an event. Finally, we get a strength-based event, though I didn't need to be the top. Being tied with Axel would have been fine. This ends up being, as we'll see, very valuable for both of us. So with the 4A, what Axel decides to do, if I remember correctly, is take 3 rocks. Yep, she takes 3 rocks, upgrades her other lab, and now raises population, grabs Bach. So a very expensive grab, spending 3 actions out of 5. But she must have figured, actually, let me think about this. Yeah, Stefan has drama. Right, what am I talking about? Stefan has drama already built, so she must have figured that if she didn't take Bach here, Stefan was going to take it. I think that's very reasonable. She's got the opera, she's got Bach, she's got rocks, she's got workers. She's ready to rip and roll here and start generating the culture, which she needs to do because she is currently behind. But with Bach and opera, you can catch up fast. All right, it is now Stefan's turn. So Stefan grabs Nobel, which I was really sad about. I actually thought when Nobel showed up here, there was a chance that Stefan would let me have him. It's a really nice transition out of Genghis because you lose the tactic, but you get 2 strength from Nobel, and I would have loved to be generating 2 extra science. I think this was a masterful move. Again, really strong from someone who's like 250 points rated lower than his opponents. Stefan is putting up a really great performance here. I think I might have even missed this type of a move myself, taking Nobel, but you can often tell if your opponent makes a move that you're really unhappy about, it's probably because it was a good move. So he grabs Nobel. He replaces Leo, gets 1 extra science and 2 extra strength, which is relevant at this point. He raises his population, grabs the Republic, and grabs frugality. Now, something that's worth noting here is that this Republic doesn't actually end up getting used. So I don't know if it was a mistake not to use it later or if it was a mistake to take it now. But he didn't really have a whole lot else to do. He's 1 science short of researching cannon and making a cannon, and there was really no way that he could work around that. The only way that he could have had the extra science... he just didn't have it. Right. He had 5 science at the beginning of the turn, so there was no way he could research cannon right here. So there was not much else that he could have done. All right, it's to me, And I play an event. I'm hoping for a strength-based event, but nope. It's just Confucius's free science, which actually, if that had shown up earlier, then Stefan could have actually made some cannons there. I'll point this out. Stefan had only 4 rocks at the end of the turn, but if he had researched cannon while Leonardo was active, he would have gotten an extra rock, and that would have let him make a cannon. Well, I decided to start fixing my economy, start with coal, so I have the rock, so I can then fix selective breeding afterwards. I actually, with the foray, took 1 rock and 2 food. 2 food being exactly what I needed to be able to raise my population here. So I used up my food really efficiently. That foray was huge. I have a worker to work with. And I've researched my coal, gotten 1, used up all my rocks, and now what to do? Well, there's some juicy cards. Journalism is very appealing. Urban growth is appealing. I could even consider taking Darwin for 2 points per turn, though losing 3 strength would really hurt, and I'm a ways off from fixing it. So what I decided to do is take the cavalrymen and the reserves. The rocks could be helpful to get the coal going faster, maybe to do other things. Remember, I have Silk Road, so I could actually play this for 4 food instead of 3 and get an extra population. Just a really valuable card. For that reason, I decide, okay, pass on strategy, which I may have a hard time researching for a while anyways. Pass on Darwin. There are some other leaders that I would be happy to play with. Maybe not Maria, because I'm not raising my population very much. But Watt to finish upgrading my coals and my selective breeding, Gowdy for some culture are also totally fine. And maybe I should have taken Darwin here because 2 culture per turn plus the action savings is pretty great. But I went for this approach, the horses to shift out of Genghis Khan and the extra rocks from the reserves. I also decide here to play the conquistadors. It actually ends up mattering. I don't know if I counted that or anything, but maybe I was just thinking like, well, I can use this extra action without losing any cards. And who knows? Maybe 2 extra strength will matter from 9 to 11, and I end up getting lucky, and it does. So we'll see how that plays out in a bit. Axel offers a trade agreement to Stefan, which is very sad. So Axel makes an extra food. Axel makes an extra rock. Stefan makes an extra food. Axel now spends all of her signs to research constitutional monarchy without losing a turn. But she has things to do. So she builds an Age A lab for 3. She researches the Eiffel Tower, takes engineering genius so she can finish it next turn, and grabs the other copy of cannon. Now this is a really smart move to take the cannon because remember, Stefan spent a lot of actions to take cannon, which probably means that he has the fortifications because he's not ready to use the defensive army. That would require upgraded warriors. So if you take cannon yourself, when one of your opponents does this, you're going to be able to copy that tactic and again, also go to the end game with it. Now, what I think was a mistake here was spending the 3 actions taking the Eiffel Tower and the engineering genius, because the Eiffel Tower is 13 rocks, a happy face, and 4 culture, and an opera is 4 culture with Bach and a happy face and only 8 rocks. Now, maybe Axel was thinking, oh, well, I don't have time to do opera because it costs science, and my next science I'm going to tie it up doing cannon. But still, eventually she's going to get opera. And when she does, she's got the workers to spare for it. So this Eiffel Tower is just like a really expensive opera, both in terms of actions and rocks. I think that those 3 actions would have been much better spent. First of all, taking urban growth to build an opera with instead of the engineering genius. And then after that, it is up to you. You can maybe take efficient upgrade here to upgrade your last lab, or perhaps you could go for something like strategy, and it's not something you can research right away, but down the road for the military actions and the strength, it's helpful if you want to go warring in Age 3. So I do think that this Wonder and Engineering Genius was a step in the wrong direction for Axel. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second here. All right, so we now go over to Stefan. Stefan finally researches those cannons and makes 1. Stefan then plays the reserves for a couple of rocks. Not enough to make a cannon. Also doesn't have enough workers to make a cannon anyways. But then he plays the Frugality 2 to get his population up and then have enough food so that next turn he can get 1 and then maybe use that to build another cannon. And I think at this point, Stefan makes a very nice move. He grabs this sort of mysterious efficient upgrade, which I thought was to upgrade the farms. But actually what he was looking for, I now realize, is these 2 copies of Organized Religion that were both at the bottom of the deck. We're down to 11 cards. Age 3 is coming soon. He's got happy face issues. Taking this in preparation of that Organized Religion gives him a very effective way to get out of this happy face problem and then also have enough rocks left over on only 3 rocks per turn to make a cannon. He then grabs Revolutionary Idea for some more science, which is always nice, and passes the turn. Now, on my turn, I have 11. Stefan has 11. I play an event, and it's the border conflict. If I only had 10, then Stefan would have gotten the rocks. But instead, I get the rocks. So that was a lucky turn that I had those conquistadors, because if I had been on a phalanx, it would have been Stefan with the 3 rocks. In fact, I would have been a hair's breadth away from being the one to lose the urban building farmer mine, because I would have been at 9 tied for last. I would have broken the tie, but it would have been close. As it is, I decide to grab James Watt. I could have taken Gowdy, but I only get one culture per turn with him at the moment, and I thought, Watt, at the end of H2, quickly being replaced by an H3 leader and saving myself a bunch of rocks and some science to upgrade my stuff would have been valuable. So I play Watt. I do lose some strength. I take the team sports because I'm going to have some happy face issues in a second, so I planned for that. I upgrade a mine. I research the horses. Instead of upgrading another mine with Watt right now, I make a horse, and I weirdly switch back to the phalanx because I think it's useful to be in the lead instead of being tied for last. And with my last action, I grab the urban growth to help make a team sports. So I am passing on architecture, which is very sad. That would have been a useful thing to have. Saving rocks without having a lot of buildings built yet, plus any wonders in age 3, that could be very helpful. I don't make a whole lot of science though, so I thought it wasn't worth it compared to just getting 3 or 4 rocks with the Silk Road to help me build a team sport. And then with Watt, these upgrades only cost 4 instead of 6, so I'm hoping I can like upgrade my last coal mine and make a team sport, and then maybe the turn after that start finally fixing my food. Remember that reserves can be used with Silk Road to get 4 food, which would let me get my last worker out of here as the age shifts over. Also, I do actually have an extra worker from Hippocrates, so I have 2. I'm going to have 2 workers here when the age shifts, and I can get one of them out with the reserves. All right, so Axel's up, builds this Eiffel Tower, and to her credit, she plays Bach and then builds the Eiffel Tower. This is the correct thing to do. You don't want to wait as the second age is ending. You need to get this wonder built fast. And if she hadn't had the Eiffel Tower, then, this opera could have happened, but then she wouldn't have been able to get cannons, and she would have been a little bit behind. I mean, you have to be a little bit scared of a situation like this where, you're behind on strength. What if one of your opponents dumps some kind of a war on you and goes nuts? So I understand her concern about that. She does now research the cannon, delaying the opera. But, what if she hadn't built the Eiffel Tower? Well, I mean, she could have taken some breakthroughs, could have taken architecture. She would have had useful things to do. Could have made another lab even to fix up science. So she would have had things to do without the Eiffel Tower. And then just, gotten the operas going next turn. And then eventually an extra opera would have been there in place of an Eiffel Tower. And she'd have an extra 5 rocks to show for it. So she builds a cannon, grabs a breakthrough, which is smart. 3 science is a big deal, and passes the turn. So she's ready to copy Stefan's fortifications. So it's H3. Let's take a quick look at where we're at here. So as far as actions go, we're all doing all right. Rocks, Axel and I are fine. Stefan is playing on bronze. Food, Axel has irrigation, but it's kind of starting to dry out. Stefan has selective breeding, and I will eventually. So there is somewhat of an equality there where Axel's the one with the most advanced, but she's running out, and Stefan and I have some potential to get more, but we haven't done it yet. Science, we're all about the same. Culture is kind of weirdly equal, where I make the least of it, Stefan makes the middle amount of it, and Axel makes the most of it, but then the current amount that we have is in reverse order. It really is just anybody's game at this point. And I have to confess, playing against a 1400 rated player, I was hoping to be more ahead of at least that player at this point in H3, but Stefan was really making me sweat it here. All right, so Stefan is up, grabs this organized religion that he, I think, knew was coming because both of them were very late in the deck, takes it, researches it, upgrades it with that efficient upgrade, fixes his happy face situation. He now grabs the navigation, researches it, grabs a breakthrough, which is amazing to have for one action, builds a cannon, and I believe that this card has been a fortifications all along. In fact, you can actually see it get played out. It was the leftmost card, so I do believe that he had this all the way back when he took the cannons for 3. He's suddenly surging into the military lead. It's a very efficient and very effective tactic, and is looking great. The one thing I will say is this navigation. There are no colonies in play, and I'll just tell you, Stefan did not put any colonies into the deck ever this entire game. So this is just 2 strength. I don't think it's good enough for 6 science. I actually think just doing architecture instead would have been better. Yes, it would have wasted a little bit of the rock from efficient upgrade, because if this costs 5 then the efficient upgrade only saves 2 rocks instead of the 3 that are promised. But still, the architecture for building wonders later, or just building any other buildings later, is going to be more significant than a navigation that just gives you 2 strength. In fact, if you don't want the architecture, then hell, just take a reserves or something instead of taking and researching it. But I do think that was actually a notable misplay. One of the first, maybe, from Stefan this game. All right, so it's over to me, and I decided to make a misplay of my own. So I do play the reserves for 4 food, which is fine. I do research the team sports, fix my happy faces, which is fine. I'm eyeing up Mandela here, so that would be actually really nice to get. I raise my population, and now what to do? Well, at this point, obviously you just upgrade your coal mine. It costs 4 rocks, increases your rock production by 2, and then you still have 2 actions left over. Do whatever the hell you want. You could take the reserves and a wave of nationalism. Yeah, they're not the greatest, but you could. You could take efficient upgrade to maybe get the selective breeding going. Granted, the selective breeding only costs 2 rocks, so the efficient upgrade's a bit of a waste. Yeah, it's not the most exciting thing. But what I decided to do here is take efficient upgrade for some damn reason. This is like a classic mistake where this is worth 3 rocks, or 4 rocks with the Silk Road. But I upgrade my coal mine, and that's worth 2 rocks. So I'm throwing away 2 actions to take this in order to get rocks that I could have gotten just by upgrading my last coal mine here. I really don't know what the hell I was thinking. With my other action, I take the reserves. So the reserves is great because I can play it for 4 food again, take this other worker out, and then get Mandela next time if he's not been taken by my opponents. So that's fine. But these 2 actions should have been 1 to upgrade coal mine, and then 1 admittedly not super exciting one to take a wave of nationalism, which would be only 3 rocks. But hey, it's still 3 rocks, and that's better than what I did. So I really biffed that turn. I have no idea what the hell I was thinking. And now it's Axel's turn. So Axel researches Opera finally and makes one. And if she hadn't spent 13 rocks on the Eiffel Tower, she could have just made another one and been in the same spot. Now, what to do with all these actions? Well, she decides to take the modern infantry and the horses, which honestly I thought was kind of weird. I mean, on the one hand, you have the Colosseum, so it sort of makes sense. You're getting the discounts in the culture. And maybe it was like a principled move of like, let me make sure that I'm open to any and all like tactics. So maybe it was just like that, like staying flexible. So that's a possibility. Personally, I would have preferred these reserves, which are really, really juicy, and a wave of nationalism, because again, you don't really need it. Now, maybe she just kind of felt like, well, I have the Colosseum. This gives me bonuses for infantry and cavalry, so it feels weird just to do fortifications. But that's the thing about Through the Ages is like sometimes, yeah, something might seem psychologically weird, but it's still just like a fine thing to do. There's nothing wrong with just going in on cannons. She's currently last in strength. Grab the wave of nationalism, grab the reserves, get yourself a bunch of rocks, switch over to the cannons, and call it a day. She does take the wave of nationalism because she has the extra actions for it. I just would have much rather preferred the reserves over this modern infantry. But in any case, she now draws some cards, and it's over to Stefan. Now, I imagine Axel must have been holding her breath here, because if Stefan declares war, she's going to be in a bit of a pickle. But Stefan does not have a war, just plays an event. It's the developed territory, which I put in way the hell back in the day. Stefan wins it over my somewhat serious attempt with my defense cards to take it. He only has to spend a couple of defense cards himself and a warrior with this navigation bonus to hit 7. And this warrior is not needed because he has the fortifications, which are cannon tactics. So that was just a nice little bump up for him from me. A little gift, you might say. He then takes coal. I actually think this is a mistake. He's got great science. And there's a revolutionary idea here, and there's one here. And he has a republic. So he could just go for that game where you use bronze mines and lots of civil actions to take yellow cards. At this point, spending science and actions to take research and upgrade coal, I think is just too late. In fact, if you watch Weidenbaum's channel, he, actually, no, God, now I just realized I forget if it's Weidenbaum or Wiedenbaum. Sorry, I think it's Wiedenbaum, actually. So if you watch Wiedenbaum's channel, there's a game from the finals of the 2025 World Championship where the winner actually does this thing in a 4-player game against, the other players in the final of the World Championship, where he just goes in on 3 bronze and it works just fine. So it's a little scary, but it absolutely can work, especially with the reserves right here. I think he should have just made that work, but he doesn't do it. He takes the coal. It's also kind of curious. He has a republic here that he could just play and get 3 extra actions and support this strategy. He's got the breakthrough and the revolutionary idea and another revolutionary idea here that he could take to do this with. So I think he missed an opportunity. Instead, he raises population, grabs the reserves, and grabs the revolutionary idea. But I mean, even with his turn as is, he could have played Republic. I think this is a case of like a good option now is better than the best option later. With a breakthrough and 2 revolutionary ideas, you should just take the 3 extra actions this turn and the next turn and use those to support your economy. All right, so it's over to me. I play the food event. We get refugees, which sadly I don't win, but Axel does have to lose a player. Now, I grab the mechanized agriculture because it is right here, and I have a somewhat strange turn. So I research it, I play the reserves for 4 food, I get an unhappy worker so I can take Mandela, but now I actually can't play Mandela. If I do, I lose the Watt bonus for these farms. So I have to actually upgrade both farms and then play Mandela next turn, missing out on 2 culture. So it's one of those things where it feels a little bit odd, but I do think it's the correct play. There's just no way for me to get the worker out so that I can pick him up without paying the action penalty and take in research and upgrade the farms and get him played. I'm just 1 action short on that. So it looks a little strange, but I believe it actually was correct. I then make a cavalryman because I have a military action to spend. And, you know, it's not amazing, but I'm hoping I get some sort of a tactic I can use with the horses. Or if I have to, I can make another infantry and get another phalanx while I kind of wait for that. Oh, beg your pardon. I actually forgot. Yeah, the conquistadors. So I switch back to the conquistadors for 2 actions, passing up on 2 H3 draws. I don't know if that's correct or not. As we'll see, it doesn't end up being that smart looking. But for the information I had at the time, it does mean I'm at least tied with Stefan, hopefully intimidating enough he doesn't want to declare war on me. And maybe I can build off of this in the future. All right, so we go back over to Axel, and then here I think Axel has just a catastrophic blunder. This is this turn I think is just a mistake of epic proportions, and I really think this just somewhat spoilery sinks her game. But the interesting thing is that this move does not look like a mistake. It actually looks smart. And I think it's one of those things that newer players might not understand is a huge, huge blunder. Just a very interesting thing that happens in this game where there is something that has a very high ratio of looking like a normal move to actually just being a horrifying mistake. So here's what Axel needs to do. She has food. She has a worker. She raises the worker, makes a cannon, and copies the fortifications, going up an extra 3 + 4, 7 strength. Going up to 17. And then the plan is at that point to just continue making cannons. She has the modern infantry, so if she does draw one of the infantry/cannon tactics like this one or this one, she can upgrade in the future. There's also cavalry in her hand, so if she gets one of the 2 of the modern army tactics, then she's really kicking it into high gear. So that's the plan. She has a great thing to do for strength now with options to improve her strength in the future. But instead what she does is she researches the cavalry, makes a horse, and crazily disbands the cannon to make another horse. And the reason for that is that she has a classic army in her hand. Now the classic army, some people say that this is an overrated tactic. I don't want to get into that debate, but it is worth noting that if you do just the number of units divided by the strength, the strength divided by the number of units, it's 2 strength per unit, 8 divided by 4. Whereas the fortifications are 2.5 strength per unit, 5 divided by 2. And that half may not look like much, but it actually is very significant. Just pound for pound, if you take like 4 cannons and 1 airplane versus 2 cavalry, 2 swordsmen in an airplane, their strength is really, really close. The 4 cannons in an airplane is like 32. And the 2 cavalry, 2 swords in an airplane is 31, 32, or 33, depending on how many of the swordsmen are riflemen. So you're getting comparable strength per worker with fortifications as you are with classic army, but you have to invest in fewer units in order to get a tactic strength bump. So whether classic army is overrated or not, like I think it can be a good tactic. In fact, we'll see it shine in this particular game. I think that it's not better than the fortifications, and the fortifications were right there for Axel Klar to use. The other thing to consider is that I over here am struggling on the conquistadors, which are, to be clear, a shitty tactic. It's 5 strength for 3 units. That's actually less than 2 strength per unit. So this is not a good endgame tactic to go with, but I already have everything set up for Classic Army. So by playing the Classic Army, Axel is giving me a possible endgame tactic, and she does not need it for herself. So she's giving me something that she doesn't need when she had a better or at least equally good option available. And now she takes the endowment because she's currently behind on culture, though she's catching up, and the revolutionary idea, which is totally fine. And you see, she's now ahead on strength. She's catching up on culture, gonna be in the lead pretty soon, making a lot more per turn than her opponents. So everything looks fine. A cursory skim of the game might not look like that's a mistake. In fact, someone would be like, whoa, that's such a clever move. Getting rid of a cannon, wow, that's a hardcore thing. I would have never thought to do that. Yeah, don't do that. That was a catastrophic blunder. So this is where Axel Klar starts going wrong. Now, I'm gonna speculate that one of these 3 cards is Shock Troops. I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that she got the 1 copy of Shock Troops in her first draw of H3 cards. And that may have guided her into thinking, oh, let me do the Classic Army and then transition to Shock Troops. Now, if that's the case, she still made a mistake because she should have just skipped the Classic Army. By playing it now, she's leaving it in the military pool forever and letting me take it, which she should not have done. All right, so it's over to Stefan. He plays an event. It's freedom of movement, which is funny because Axel could have turned the cannon into a horse later without having to give it up. But Stefan doesn't do anything with freedom of movement. He goes for the coal, which I think is a mistake. He upgrades 1, and now he's got 4 actions left over. He could still play the Republic, but he decides to go big, plays the revolutionary idea, grabs democracy, and plays it for culture. It's a little bit aggressive, 6 extra science compared to the Republic, but hey, you are getting an extra military action and 3 extra culture per turn, which is not irrelevant. Now with 3 extra actions left, grabs the computers, the tanks, and just plays the reserves to get it out of his hand. It's hard to say whether that was correct. These computers and tanks don't end up being a super big deal this game, but it is maybe a little weird to commit the 3 actions on one of these yellow cards when it's unclear if he's actually going to need them. So it's over to me. I play Mandela, so now I go up to 8 civil actions, which I'm very excited about. I now grab the military theory. Can't do it yet, but I will use it in the future. I can do it next turn. All my economy is fixed. I don't have any pressing needs. And that's 5 strength and extra civil actions in case I need to go warring. Now, I built another arena partly for the strength to go in the lead, but also because, remember, that's actually culture with Mandela. Mandela gets culture for happy faces that are not needed. I grabbed the revolutionary idea because science is really good. And then in urban growth, I have an extra action left over. The obvious thing here is to just raise population. But at this point, I was thinking, like, how can I stay ahead? In fact, or catch up to Stefan, who's now ahead of me on culture and making more than me per turn. And Axel Klar, who's going to zoom up to me in just a bit. There is, in this game, the International Red Cross, which is the wonder that costs food. Since I got my farms going like crazy, that wonder makes a lot of sense to wait for. So I decide to take multimedia, just trying to kind of fix my problem of not having ways to turn rocks into points. This doesn't end up being a particularly significant development, and honestly, I probably should have just taken the movies for that extra culture. But I passed the turn, and now it's over to Axel. So here you'll see what Axel was doing. Axel researches the modern infantry, upgrades 1 swordsman to a modern infantry, and after playing the endowment for 6 points while she's still in technically last place, notice it was her leftmost card. Yeah, so it was Shock Troops. She has the Shock Troops. So she transitioned to it. But now the Classic Army is in the pool, and starting on my next turn, I'll be able to take it. She also grabs military theory, patriotism, and then just plays the revolutionary idea with nothing else to do. It is worth noting that Gandhi was here, and maybe Axel's going to regret not taking Gandhi, but I think Axel was waiting for Marlene, which makes sense because she has the opera and is set to be able to build some more. All right, Stefan's currently in last on strength. He grabs the air forces for 3 actions. That's one of the great things you can do when you have 9 civil actions every turn. Then it's time to research those computers, upgrade a lab. Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm wrong. The computers I said last turn were not significant this game. That's untrue. Because Stefan does switch to Einstein, so now we have the Nobel Prize if you can research 2 techs in the same turn. So with that plus 3 culture per tech from Einstein, Stefan having more science is definitely a big deal. Stefan also grabs these reserves and makes another cannon to round things out. Okay, on my turn, I grab the Red Cross, which just barely appeared here. Sadly, I don't have architecture, so I can't do anything with it now, but I don't really need to. I didn't have enough food to just make the wonder in one jump anyways. It costs 15 food to do that. I would have needed one more food and architecture to get the whole thing, but Axel has no food, so it's going to be Stefan who builds 1 stage and I who build 4, and I still get a lot of culture relative to both opponents, but I don't have to do anything with it yet. So what I decided to do is grab the air forces myself in case I draw a war. I currently just have this war over territory, which is pretty irrelevant at this point, but if I do get a war in my next draw, I may be able to do a war on somebody. I play the urban growth to get another arena. This is actually free with the age 3 urban growth plus the Silk Road. Gives me an extra 2 culture per turn and an extra couple of strength. And then I just research the military theory. So the idea here is that with this, I have enough military actions that I can switch to the classic army without losing any card draws in order to make sure that I have the maximum possible chance of drawing a war over culture. With the air forces, the revolutionary idea, all this food, and all these people, I may be able to get up a big war with the classic army. So here, I think Axel continues to make a bit of a... Oh, by the way, I should note I do actually draw a war over culture here. So Axel plays military theory, and I don't know, but I speculate that she makes a mistake. I think that she thought that with the shock troops, the game being almost over, and the military theory, that she was fine on strength. I mean, she is technically the leader at the moment by a margin over Stefan, so she thought she was fine on strength. So she decided to go big on this United Nations wonder instead of taking yellow cards like reserves and patriotism that could have been used to help her build up a bigger army. So now it's Stefan's turn. Stefan plays an event, grabs the politics of strength, which is unlucky for him. So Axel, currently the strength leader, gets 5 extra military cards. Stefan loses a card draw turn. Plays a revolutionary idea, gets down the air forces, plays the reserves, makes an air force to catch up on strength. He then builds 1 stage of the Red Cross, and now just takes a horde of yellow cards. It's worth noting that because Axel only took this wonder off the row on her turn, and did not take yellow cards off the row, when it comes over to me, there have actually been very few cards taken off the row that are not in the 2 automatically discarded slots. Really just 3, the United Nations plus these 2 yellow cards. So on my turn, I'm going to put in, by the way, the impact of strength. If I only take 1 card off the row, I can actually keep this going another turn and give myself time to prepare for a war over culture. And I decide that's what I'm going to do because I can actually do it. Civil Unrest shows up. This makes Stefan lose 4 culture. Note that number, 4 culture. Okay, so how do we build up for a war here? I may toot my own horn a little bit. I think this is a good demonstration of how you plan ahead for a war. What I'm going to need to do is make air forces, make 2 air forces, make 2 horses, and make 1 infantry. That'll give me 2 full Air Force classic armies. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to need to count the rocks. It's the 14 rocks for the 2 air forces, plus 10 rocks for 2 horses, that's 24, plus another 2, that's 26, which I have. 19 plus 9 is 28, minus 2 for corruption is 26. So I have enough rocks to do it. I'm also going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 military actions to get that stuff built, plus another 3 to actually declare the war. That's 8. I have 7, so as long as I do at least 1 thing this turn, I'll have enough military actions to do it as well. So we count the rocks, we count the military actions, and I just need to make sure I only take 1 card off the row. Which card do I take? Well, that's obviously going to be the reserves, so I can have some more rocks to work with. I mean, it's just the most valuable card here. Nothing else really does anything. So it's time to put the plan into action. I raise population, which I can do and still have enough food to finish building the Red Cross. I build it for 24 culture plus 1, because there's 1 colony in play that I put in that Stefan won. Now I make a horse. I'm tragically 1 food short of being able to make another worker, but that's okay. I play Revolutionary Idea, I grab the reserves, and next turn, I know I have just enough military actions to declare a war, make 2 airplanes, and make a horse, and make an infantry. And luckily, I'm at only corruption of 2 instead of 4. The blue tokens happen to work out very nicely that way. So that's the plan. I discard my H2 military card because it's going to go away. I draw another war over culture, which is fine but irrelevant, and it's over to Axel's turn. Axel plays an event. We get the international negotiations. Stefan again loses. Poor Stefan. Although it's kind of ironic. Axel keeps winning. Well, not this one, but she won some strength-based events, and Stefan lost them. But it ended up being Stefan who is much more the military safe player, and Axel who is the victim. So Axel chooses to have Stefan give me 3 irrelevant food. It doesn't really matter for either one of us. She grabs the engineering genius to help build the wonder, grabs military buildup, builds another opera, which is what I think is the sign that she underestimated the gravity of the situation. Maybe you might say, well, 1 more horse wouldn't have mattered, so maybe she knew and just chose not to do anything about it because she didn't care. But regardless, she makes another opera for some more culture, upgrades a sword, grabs engineering, which is curious because she's not using it to make these operas with. Maybe it's just to research things to try to get Alfred Nobel's bonus. And then she passes the turn. She didn't take either of these leaders, which would have been worth a bit of culture, but she's holding out for Marlene, who was the literal last card of the deck. So now Stefan's up. He researches the tanks for some culture, plays patriotism, builds a tank, switches over to the mechanized army for a nice strength bump, plays reserves for food, or for rocks, raises population, and then builds another temple with urban growth to fix the happy face issues. Okay, now he has a moment to breathe. He's going to have 13 science next turn. So he upgrades a lab to a computer to make it so he has 16 science next turn, and that very conveniently allows him to research rockets and satellites. Satellites obviously is useless with his navigation, and there being no colonies in the game, but these 2 is a big deal that he has exactly enough science to do it, because he's going to get 10 points for it. 6 for researching them with Einstein, plus 4 for the Nobel Prize, and maybe even more if like an impact of technology or an impact of progress is in the deck. He also has the castle and the ability to make another cannon. Actually, hold on. 9 rocks. Yeah, he cannot make another tactic. That would require a tank and a cannon. But with the castle, he is the stronger player, both in terms of the current strength and the fact that he can toss away a tank to get an extra 8 strength with the castle. So when I declare war, I'm going to declare it on the underprepared Axel. Even though I'm a strength behind, that is highly illusory. I am about to pop off. So I raise population twice. I now have to blow up both of my labs in order to get enough workers. I play reserves for 5 rocks, because why not? And now it's time to build. The 2 airplanes, the 2 military units, the horse and the sword, and the other airplane, which I already said. And notice that uses up my military actions exactly, because I just needed 1 military action spent the previous turn to do it. The age has already ended, so I'm not missing any draws or anything like that. It's just a good, clean use of actions. And here, I grab a computer's an efficient upgrade in case I want to research it for 8 science next turn and build a lab. I'm probably not going to, but that's what I decided to do. So, Axel now is facing doom with my 73 strength. She flips Impact of Strength, which I played, and I'm very happy to win. She grabs Marlene, plays it, it fixes her happy faces. She plays military buildup, blows up all of her mines, and makes as many horses and military units as she can. This thing that she spent 5 actions picking up doesn't get built. I don't know if it was a mistake to not build it. Maybe like it just wasn't worth that much. Like it's only 12 points. So maybe 12 points was not worth the strength that she could get and not lose to me in the war. So now Stefan's like, ha ha ha, I dodged a bullet. He plays an event, and it is Impact of Science. Now, if you're keeping tabs on this, there have been 2 of these point-based impacts. I got 14 and 0. Axel got 7 and 0. And Stefan got 7 and 14. So Stefan's the big winner of these. And notice, he's really, really close to me on culture. So now he's going to research the satellites and the rockets to get the Nobel Prize plus 6 points from Einstein to actually get ahead of me. He blows up a farm and builds another drama. Then he disbands a warrior and builds a 3rd drama. Now, something to note is he makes a slight misplay here by blowing up a farm instead of blowing up a mine. Now, the reason for that is that there's an impact of farms and an impact of rocks, and he didn't play either one, so he doesn't know which of those is in the deck. If there's an impact of rocks, loses a point because he lost a mine. If he blows up a mine, if there's an impact of the farms, then he loses a point because he lost a farm. So it might seem like it doesn't actually matter which of these he does. However, it actually does matter because the farming one has this extra thing of if you exceed consumption, you get a 4 culture bonus, Right now, when he blew up a farm, he dropped his food production to exactly 4, so his food production does not exceed consumption. Had he kept it in, he actually, with the farming event that I played, would have gotten an extra 5 points. 1 for the extra food production, plus 4 for the extra consumption. Not knowing which one's in, you should make sure that you keep the farm over the mine in a situation like this. So it's over to me. I steal 21 points from Axel, completely crushing her out of the game. And on my turn, I also have an Occupy to play on Stefan. I steal 3 culture from him. Note, that is relevant. I also steal 3 science, so if I hadn't done the science stealing, I could have done computers and just made a computer. As it is, I have enough science to actually research multimedia, raise population, and then make one of these for 3 extra points. If it had been a movie, I would have gotten an extra 4 points instead of 3 points. I just lost a culture here for no reason. Now, I make a mistake here myself. I actually end my turn now, and that is a mistake. What I should have done is I should have blown up a sword and made a temple. Now, I don't remember what I was thinking, but the impact of strength has already come and gone, so it doesn't matter that blowing up this sword costs me 18 strength. Even though I'm no longer in the lead at that point, it actually just doesn't matter because the impact of strength has already happened. The only thing that it could matter for is impact of competition, which is losing me 1 point for this age 1 unit, but I get the point back from the temple. The temple is a guaranteed point, so it's going to happen no matter what, whether impact of competition is in there or not. But the temple also is relevant for 2 events. Impact of harmony, I go from having 4 urban buildings to having 5, and because I have 5 in all the other categories too, that would actually give me an extra 4 points, and impact of variety would have given me an extra 2 points. So that was a misplay on my part here, not getting rid of a sword. So I end the turn, and I do go into the final event scoring with a pretty comfortable lead over Stefan. I was 17 points ahead. But he immediately catches up 4 points because of my misplay with Impact of Harmony. So now I'm only 13 points ahead. Then we flip over the Impact of Colonies, the 1 colony in the game. Stefan took a navigation, never put a single colony into the deck. I played the only colony that went in there. Stefan won it, and that gives him an extra 3 points ahead of me. We then flip Impact of Wonders, which gives him another 3 points. At this point, I'm honestly starting to get a little bit worried. And then comes the nail in the coffin, Impact of Goddamn Culture. So this is all 3 of these 14-point impacts in the game. Stefan's the big winner on those. He got 14, 14, and 7. I got 14, 0, and 0. And Axel got 0, 7, and 7. So Stefan made out like a bandit on those and is now 7 points ahead of me going into the final event. I had some heart palpitations here, and then of course I remembered, oh yeah, I put this in, Impact of Agriculture, which gives me a whopping 14 food for my farms. Had Stefan blown up a mine instead of a farm, he would have won this game. The extra culture I got from Genghis is relevant. That 4 culture from the civil unrest is relevant. Everything is relevant. And just barely, I managed to eke out a win against this player who I think, maybe I played bad, but I think that, for someone in the 1400s, Stefan played an amazing game here. It was a really, really tight finish. Well done to both of my opponents. And thus concludes the most harrowing of all of the games in this series. There's not going to be a closer finish than 3 points. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you again soon.